Hello and welcome to Her Story, Woman in Loyalism. My name is Sonia Love and I will be your host for today. I have the great pleasure in introducing our guest, who is Leanne Abernathy. She is the founder of HERstory and also project manager. Welcome, Leanne.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
I'm not so bad, Leanne, thank you. Now, I am also a member of HERstory, Leanne, and I have been with you now for just over 2 years, I believe. Can I ask you, Leanne, how did HERstory start?
Okay, before I start with that, I just want to say that I'm very proud to be sitting here and to be interviewed by you, Sonia.
Thank
It's
you,
great.
Leanne.
It's absolutely great. But how did her story start? That is a really good question. It's one of, I come up with these ideas every so often, and it was
Yes.
one of the ideas that I had. And it started about 3 years ago, I'd say, that I started to look into this. And I just felt there was a real need for something, and I couldn't figure out what. And I kept going to courses because
Yeah.
I work in community development and I'm a part of Lydia Community Empowerment, and they run brilliant courses throughout the country, but it was always men at them.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out why it was men at them
Uh-huh.
because they were for everybody.
Uh-huh.
And they were very welcoming to everybody, but it was men. So I had a little talk with people, I did a little bit of research, and I figured out that the reason was that women had other priorities. So it
Yes.
wasn't that they weren't interested in the topic, they were, and they did want to go. They just couldn't because the timing wasn't right, the venues weren't right. We tended to run things in the evenings thinking that people were finished work, but women had family lives, so they
Yes.
couldn't go. And it was then you started to think, well, actually, that's unfair and we need to make it open to everybody. And I wasn't a person for women's programs because I'm very much everybody should be equal and
Yes.
everybody should be able to attend things. So it didn't sit easy with me at the start to look at a women's program. But the more research I did, the more it was, this isn't a different program for women. This is just a program that women can dip in and out of, and it complements everything else going out there, but it gives them that extra bit of support because of so much other things going on. So that's where the idea came from. And then it was just a matter of getting funding
Uh-huh.
and going out and getting the funding for it. But I was very lucky that we got funding quite quickly. And then it was taking it from there.
Very good. Now, you touched on, Leanne, there about courses that you attended. What type of courses were these? Were these like confidence-based courses, research courses, or?
Well, back then it was any kind of courses because Lydia Community Empowerment just looks at empowering communities, especially within the loyalist communities. But it was around culture, it was around identity, it was capacity building, confidence building. It was absolutely anything at all, and all really interesting things.
And how did HERstory, Woman and Loyalism, where did the name come from?
Yeah, that's one of those things. I'm not creative, so I am not good. See, when you get me down to sit and write an essay title or come up with a name for a project, no. I can come up with ideas for what it will look like, the programs, but when it comes to names, not very good. So I asked around and it again, talked to some people and said what would be a good name. And what we wanted to look at was the fact that it's raising women's capacity and it's looking at their identity and their culture and their pride. But we wanted to capture oral history and stories that are being lost, and we use storytelling methods. So her story just sounded right. So a play on words from history.
Yes,
So her story rather than his story.
exactly.
And then the women in loyalism, I was very keen that that is our culture, that is our identity, and that's what we're proud of. And the whole thing is around, it's not about only women in loyalism and loyalist issues. It's around saying this is who we are and this is what we're proud of. But that's not all we are, but we want to start that conversation. So we'll meet with anybody, we'll talk to anybody, but we are proud loyalist women.
What type of members do you have, Leanne? You know, do they, or what are their backgrounds? Where do they come from?
We have a very wide and diverse range of loyalist women. Different women you talk to have a different opinion on what loyalism means to them, and that's something to be celebrated, and it's something that we like to discuss within the group. But we have women geographically from Londonderry to Antrim to Dungannon, Coleraine, Ballymoney. So we are based ourselves in Ballymoney. So a lot of what we do takes place in Ballymoney, but it's handy because we have the train service. So anybody come from Antrim or Londonderry will just jump in the train and come on down. We do a lot of bus trips and other things as well, so we organise transport. But the women are from all ages, so we have people from 18 right up to about 75 years of age. They come from all different backgrounds. They come from, you know, families, single people, coming from backgrounds with security links, with no links, with other links. Everybody's welcome.
Great. And does everybody meet in Ballymoney, or is there other areas that you can go to? You know, sometimes it's not easy for people to hop on trains or get lifts.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of the programme, because it is very drop in and out. So what you'll find is some women are very interested in one topic, maybe not as interested in another. You mightn't see some women for a month or two because that's not what they want to do, or something else comes up, but they can drop in and out when they want. But what we'll tend to do is we come up with a programme, and depending on where the most interest comes, that's where we'll go and hold it. So we'll hold it in Londonderry a lot as well, and we'll hold it in Ballymoney. Tends to be the two most popular places. But we'll go where we need it.
Exactly, Leanne. We go everywhere.
Everywhere.
Anything that you come up with, we're like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's go for that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I've found now there's a lot of things in the culture and history of loyalism that I didn't know. It was things that weren't taught in school. Would that be another thing that HERstory would be looking at, you know, for children to learn and get educated in culture and history of loyalism?
We'll do whatever the women want us to do, or whatever we think the need is. So a lot of work we've done in the first 2 years we were set up was to look at research and working on the women themselves. So how can we go out into a public forum and talk about something if we don't really know what it is? So, you know, there's always talk out there about the Good Friday Agreement and the constitutional question, but how many people actually have read the document and know it? So as women, we sit down, as you know, around a table with a cup of tea, and we go through documents paragraph by paragraph, and we gain an understanding of it. And how we understand it is we look at our own lives. So how has this document affected us? What does it mean to us? Because you know yourself, sometimes I'll take a different meaning out of it than
Well,
you.
that's true. We all do. We all have a different point of view on what's being said. And sometimes, well, most of the time probably in the documents, it's very hard to understand it. It's whatever way it's set out, whatever big words that they use, you know, because not all of us are as educated as some people. So you're sort of looking at it and you're thinking, what does that mean? And where's that going to? And what's that going to do for me? You know, so we go on quite a few trips, Leanne. So we do. We have been to Dan Winter's cottage, which we found all very interesting as well too. We've got a few more coming up now. How do you go about setting that up for the HERstory ladies?
So it's really good in that we've got funding to go on trips, educational trips, and to learn more. And, you know, we welcome, because you'd mentioned in the last question about children and things, we welcome the women to bring their children with them to anything. You know, it's not the women have to come and they can't bring their kids. If they've got their kids, kids are welcome too. When it comes to running trips, we always try and have a bit of an educational purpose around them. So it's looking at something, if we've researched a document, we'll go somewhere that might look at what we were doing. So we had a couple of women in Londonderry come up with their own 1641 rebellion piece that they put out with a PowerPoint and everything. So our trip, we're going on a trip now down to Portadown. where we will hear more about 1641 and what happened down there. But then we'll round that off by going and doing some pottery making as well. So we'll have to have a bit of fun. It can't all be about research, but it's about making women more capable to speak up.
Yes.
And if there's something they don't like, to respectfully challenge that. And because they've read and they have an understanding of the documents, they're putting across their own narrative, not the narrative that they're hearing on social media and what's pumped out from the government and from people who speak the loudest. So it's very much about empowering women to have their own voice. And I'm very pleased with how it's going.
Yes, I find that too a lot of times. We don't speak up for ourselves, you know, or people look at us and go, oh, she doesn't understand, we're not going to bother with her, you know. And it's nice for us to be able to stand up and say, no, hang on a wee minute, I'm not too sure about that. What's that going to do for me? How's that going to help me, you know, in other ways? Leanne, where do you see the future of HERstory? Where do we go from here? And how long do you think this will continue?
Oh, Sonia, if you'd asked me that 2 years ago, I would have said something completely different to what I'm saying to you now. So it's very much going the route of the women and where the women wanted to go. So we celebrated our 2 years in 2023, and a lot of people still don't know about us because those 2 years were spent working on the women within the group. So it was very insular, coming together. But now we're looking at the fact that we feel stronger, we feel more confident to have our voices heard. So this is our next step. We had our 2-year celebration, and what we did was we had an event in the Manor Hotel in Ballymoney, and it was really, really successful. But we didn't hire in these big speakers, key speakers. It was normal women, and it was women from our group and others who were sitting telling their story.
That's right.
And it was absolutely fantastic. But we did look at how that worked and the feedback coming through from people, which was, we want to hear Loyalist women's stories. We want to hear that Loyalist women are women and the issues they face and just everyday stories. So rather than having road shows, because that was said to us, why don't you have road shows? But it can be hard to get women all together and we can't afford venues all the time. We thought, well, why don't we look at podcasting?
Yes.
So that was one of those ideas that we have. Let's do podcasting. And this is the start of our journey into that. And hopefully it will be in the future, and we'll keep looking at different things and we will keep blossoming and keep expanding what it is we're doing, as long as there's a need for it and the women are finding it useful. The other thing we're very keen on in the future, and we're developing it at the moment, is an oral history archive. So the stories of Northern Ireland are being rewritten and they're being lost. So we need to capture those stories, and I think HERstory is perfectly placed to capture those. So as part of that, I've actually went back to Ulster University and I'm doing a master's degree in social policy, but there's research element to that. So it's to ensure that we capture those stories very ethically and that we ensure that we do everything we can to protect people's stories for the future.
Yeah, we do find that now. Our history and our culture is dwindling away, and there is other parties who are trying to change history. But you'll never learn if you change history. History is there for us to learn from, you know, for our future. And I do find the courses that we do all very, very interesting. I've never looked at a podcast before, so this is totally new for me to be sitting here even doing an interview. But it's just like, well, you're you and me, and we know each other, and we can sit and have a wee natter and stuff like that there. But Leanne, it was very, very nice now to have you sitting here and speaking to me today. And I think we'll just wrap that up, and hopefully we will get back to you again at some other stage in our next episodes. So everybody, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'd like to just say thank you very much, Leanne, and we will see you again soon. Thank you.